What if everything you've been told about men wanting relationships is no longer true? For decades, society repeated the same story. Men chase, men commit, men fear being alone. But look around today, and something unexpected is happening. More men than ever are choosing to stay single, not because they can't find a partner, but because they're deciding that peace has become more valuable than constant emotional uncertainty. Most people assume these men are bitter, heartbroken, or simply afraid of commitment. But what if that's completely wrong? Most men never realize this. The biggest change isn't happening in women's behavior. It's happening inside men's minds, and once you understand why, you'll never look at modern relationships the same way again. Pay close attention because this changes everything. Many men reach a point where they stop asking, "How do I attract her?" and begin asking a much more dangerous question, "Is this relationship actually improving my life?" That single question changes everything. For years, many men were taught that their happiness depended on finding the right woman. Movies, family, friends, even social media reinforced the same belief. Success wasn't considered complete without a relationship. But reality has a way of exposing illusions. After experiencing failed relationships, emotional games, broken trust, or simply watching others struggle through painful divorces and endless conflict, many men begin seeing patterns they ignored before. And once those patterns become impossible to ignore, something inside them shifts. Not into anger, not into hatred, into caution. That's where the story becomes far more interesting, because this isn't about giving up on women, it's about protecting something many men never valued until they almost lost it, their peace. What happens next may surprise you. Imagine two men. The first spends every waking moment trying to impress women. He constantly changes himself to gain approval, overthinks every text message, worries about saying the wrong thing, and feels emotionally exhausted. The second man stops chasing validation. He builds his career, improves his health, develops meaningful friendships, and creates a life he genuinely enjoys. Oddly enough, the second man often becomes far more attractive. Why? Because confidence born from self-respect is fundamentally different from confidence built on external approval. Female psychology naturally responds to emotional strength, but emotional strength doesn't come from chasing someone else's attention. It comes from becoming emotionally independent. But here's where it gets interesting. Many men mistake independence for loneliness. They're not the same thing. Loneliness is feeling empty when you're alone. Independence is feeling complete even when no one else is there. That difference explains why more men are choosing solitude, not as an escape, but as a conscious decision. And surprisingly, this choice often changes the way women respond to them. But there's another reason this trend is growing, one that almost nobody talks about. It has nothing to do with dating apps. It has nothing to do with money. And once you understand this hidden psychological shift, you'll see why so many men quietly walk away from relationships without ever announcing it. Because the real reason isn't what most people think. The first reason more men are choosing to stay single isn't because they've stopped believing in love. It's because they've started valuing emotional stability more than emotional excitement. That may sound simple, but it's one of the biggest psychological shifts happening today. Think about it. When you're younger, excitement feels like love. The uncertainty, the late night texts, the butterflies, the emotional highs and lows, they all seem exciting. But after enough life experience, you begin to notice something. Excitement fades. Peace lasts. Most men never realize this until they've been through enough relationships to recognize the pattern. They stop chasing emotional intensity and start looking for emotional consistency, and that's incredibly difficult to find. What happens next may surprise you. Imagine a man who spent years trying to be the perfect partner. He planned dates, listened carefully, made sacrifices, and always put the relationship first. At first, everything seemed perfect. Then slowly small arguments became bigger ones. Expectations increased. Appreciation became less frequent. Instead of feeling respected, he constantly felt like he had to prove his worth. Eventually, he asked himself a question he had never considered before. Why do I feel more relaxed when I'm alone than when I'm in a relationship? That question changes everything. Because once a man experiences genuine peace by himself, he's far less willing to trade it for unnecessary emotional chaos. But here's where it gets interesting. This doesn't mean all relationships are unhealthy. It means men are becoming more selective. Instead of asking, "Does she like me?" they begin asking, "Can we build a peaceful life together?" That's a completely different mindset. Female psychology notices this change too. When a man isn't desperately seeking approval, his behavior changes naturally. He communicates calmly. He doesn't panic if someone pulls away. He respects himself enough to walk away from situations that consistently drain his energy. Ironically, that emotional stability is often more attractive than constant pursuit. Confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the ability to remain centered, even when emotions are running high. Pay close attention because this changes everything. Another major reason many men stay single is that they've discovered fulfillment outside of relationships. Years ago, a man's identity often revolved around marriage and family. Today, many men find purpose through fitness, business, travel, learning new skills, close friendships, or personal growth. For the first time, they realize they don't need a relationship to feel complete. That realization removes desperation, and when desperation disappears, standards rise. Now, the question isn't, can I find someone? It's, does this person genuinely improve my life? That's a powerful filter. Because being single no longer feels like failure, it feels like freedom. But there's another layer that very few people understand. It's rooted deep in human psychology and explains why attraction often increases the moment a man stops chasing it. At first, it seems completely backwards. Yet, once you understand the psychology behind it, everything starts making sense. Now we arrive at one of the most misunderstood parts of female psychology. Many men believe attraction is created by giving more attention, more compliments, more availability, more effort. But here's where it gets interesting. Human psychology rarely places the highest value on what is constantly available. Whether it's time, attention, or affection, people tend to appreciate it more when it comes from someone who clearly has standards. This isn't about playing games. It's about self-respect. Most men never realize this because they're taught that proving their value means sacrificing more of themselves. So they answer every message immediately, cancel plans to be available, ignore disrespect, and convince themselves that patience will eventually earn appreciation. Sometimes it does. Many times it doesn't. The problem isn't kindness. The problem is kindness without boundaries. Imagine two different men. The first rearranges his entire life whenever a woman asks. His happiness depends on her mood. If she's distant, he panics. If she doesn't reply, he assumes he's done something wrong. Without realizing it, he slowly gives away his confidence. The second man also cares deeply, but he has a life that doesn't stop when someone enters it. He has goals, routines, friendships, and purpose. He enjoys spending time with a partner, but his identity doesn't depend on the relationship. Who seems emotionally stronger? For many people, emotional stability creates a greater sense of security than constant reassurance. What happens next may surprise you. When a man stops chasing validation, his conversations change. He listens more than he tries to impress. He says what he means instead of guessing what someone wants to hear. He's willing to disagree respectfully because he isn't afraid of losing himself. That quiet confidence often leaves a stronger impression than grand romantic gestures. Pay close attention because this changes everything. This is why some men notice an unexpected pattern. The moment they stop forcing relationships and begin focusing on their own growth, they often receive more attention than before. Not because they're pretending to be unavailable, because they're genuinely fulfilled. There's a huge psychological difference. People are naturally drawn to those who appear emotionally complete rather than emotionally dependent. But don't misunderstand this. Being emotionally independent doesn't guarantee every relationship will succeed, and it shouldn't be used as a tactic to manipulate someone into chasing you. Its real value is much deeper. It protects you from accepting relationships built on fear, insecurity, or constant emotional exhaustion. And once you experience that level of inner stability, your standards begin to change. You stop asking, how can I keep this relationship? You start asking, is this relationship healthy enough to keep? That single shift filters out many unhealthy situations before they become long-term problems. But there's one mistake that even confident men continue to make. A mistake so subtle that it quietly destroys respect, attraction, and emotional connection over time. Understanding that mistake may completely change the way you approach relationships. By now, you may be thinking that staying single is simply about protecting your peace. But that's only part of the story. The real lesson isn't that relationships are bad. The real lesson is that the wrong relationship can cost you far more than being alone. Most men never realize this until they've invested years into someone who is never truly aligned with their values. Time, energy, confidence, even their sense of identity. And that's why today's emotionally intelligent men are becoming much more selective. They've learned that compatibility isn't built on chemistry alone. It's built on mutual respect. Here's where it gets interesting. Many men assume attraction is enough to sustain a relationship. They believe if the chemistry is strong, everything else will eventually fall into place. Reality tells a different story. Chemistry may bring two people together. Character determines whether they stay together. Think about the healthiest couples you've ever met. They don't spend every day proving who has more power. They don't create unnecessary drama to keep things exciting. They communicate honestly, solve problems together, and respect each other's independence. That kind of relationship isn't boring, it's secure. And security becomes incredibly valuable as people mature. What happens next may surprise you. Many men who choose to stay single aren't rejecting commitment. They're rejecting relationships that require them to abandon themselves. There's an enormous difference. A healthy relationship encourages growth. An unhealthy one demands sacrifice without appreciation. One inspires confidence, the other slowly drains it. Pay close attention because this changes everything. A common mistake, even among successful men, is confusing attention with genuine interest. Someone may text you constantly, compliment you often, or show intense affection in the beginning. But consistency matters more than intensity. Real interest shows up through respect during disagreements, through honesty when things become difficult, through support when life isn't exciting. That's where true character is revealed. Another overlooked lesson is this. Never build your identity around another person. Care deeply, love sincerely, invest wholeheartedly, but never lose the habits, friendships, ambitions, and purpose that made you who you were before the relationship began. The strongest relationships are formed by two complete individuals choosing each other, not by two people hoping the other will fill an emotional void. Ironically, the less you need someone to complete you, the healthier your relationships often become. Because you're choosing from abundance, not fear. And that changes every decision you make. But we've saved the most important insight for last. It explains why some men remain single for years, yet seem happier, calmer, and even more attractive than before. It also reveals what truly separates men who merely survive relationships from those who build lasting, fulfilling ones. And once you understand this final principle, you'll never see modern relationships the same way again. So why are more men choosing to stay single? After everything we've explored, the answer isn't as simple as women have changed or relationships don't work anymore. The deeper truth is this: many men have changed the way they define success. Years ago, success meant finding someone, almost anyone, to avoid being alone. Today, more men are asking a different question. Does this relationship bring peace, trust, and mutual respect into my life? If the answer is no, they're increasingly willing to walk away. And that's not failure, it's maturity. Most men never realize this until much later in life. Being single is not the opposite of happiness. Living without purpose is. A relationship should complement your life, not become your entire life. That's the lesson many men learn only after years of experience. What happens next may surprise you. The men who seem most content on their own are often the ones who are best prepared for a healthy relationship. Why? Because they no longer operate from fear. They're not afraid of being alone. They're not afraid of rejection. They're not afraid to say no to situations that don't align with their values. That quiet confidence changes everything. It influences how they communicate, how they set boundaries, how they choose partners, and perhaps most importantly, how they value themselves. Here's where it gets interesting. When you stop chasing validation, you begin attracting something far more valuable than attention. You attract respect. Respect from others begins with respect for yourself. That doesn't mean every relationship will be successful. It doesn't mean you'll never experience disappointment, but it does mean you'll make better decisions because they're based on clarity instead of loneliness. The healthiest relationships aren't built by two people desperately trying to complete each other. They're built by two emotionally mature individuals who choose each other freely, while still maintaining their own identity, purpose, and self-respect. Pay close attention because this changes everything. The goal was never to convince you to stay single forever. The goal is to help you understand that being comfortable alone gives you the freedom to choose wisely rather than emotionally. When you no longer fear solitude, you stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop ignoring red flags. You stop sacrificing your values just to keep someone around. And that's when real confidence begins. So if you're currently single, don't automatically see it as a setback. See it as an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, healthier, and more emotionally grounded. Because the better your relationship with yourself becomes, the higher the quality of relationships you'll allow into your life. In the end, the strongest man isn't the one who can attract the most people. It's the one who knows when to walk away, when to stay, and when to protect his peace without losing his capacity to love. That is true emotional strength. If you found value in this video, leave a like and subscribe for more insights into female psychology, attraction, and relationship dynamics. And now tell me in the comments. Do you think more men are choosing to stay single by choice, or because modern relationships have become more complicated? I'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, stay confident, stay observant, and always choose self-respect over desperation.